Hey guys, this is Miss Arlequin, and in today's lesson we're going to talk about ways to craft an effective thesis statement for our essays. Alright, so before we talk about a thesis statement, let's just talk in general about the structure of an essay. When I think about the structure of an essay, I like to compare it to an hourglass, like the one you see right here on the right side of the screen. And that's because your introduction should have the same shape as the top part of the hourglass. And what I mean by that is when you look at an hourglass, you see that the very top part of it is very wide. It's very large. And then as the top kind of goes down and you get closer to the middle of the hourglass, you see that it's getting slimmer and slimmer, smaller and smaller. And that's what you want the ideas in your introduction to do. You want to start out with your engaging lead, and your engaging lead should be very general, meaning you're not talking yet about specific story details. You're not even necessarily mentioning the specific name of the text that you're writing about or the author. You're just taking some of the bigger ideas, some of the bigger themes or topics of the text that you're going to be writing about, some of the bigger themes and central ideas of the essay you're going to be writing, and you're kind of introducing them in an engaging, interesting way that gets your reader's attention. Then, once you've done that, you start to get a little bit more specific. So that's the middle part of your intro, where you begin to connect that general lead sentence to the last sentence of your introduction, which is going to be your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is the most specific statement of that first paragraph. In your connecting sentences, you're maybe starting to introduce the specific author or the specific text that you're going to be writing about. And then you get to your thesis. Again, that is the most specific part of your intro. It is a sentence that kind of sums up the point that your essay is going to be making. Now, going back to our hourglass analogy, you know that after your introduction, you have some paragraphs that are considered the body of your essay. They're your body paragraphs. And just like the hourglass, where that is the most specific part of the hourglass, it's the smallest part, the body paragraphs are the most specific paragraphs of your essay. It's where you give all your details and your evidence. And you can't get any more specific than giving text evidence. And then, just like the hourglass, it ends by becoming very narrow, staying very narrow, and then as you get to the bottom of the hourglass, it gets very wide again. That's what your conclusion is going to do. So in your conclusion, you're going to restate your thesis, and then you're slowly almost going to do the reverse of what you did in your intro. You're going to start to bring it back into more general discussion, maybe making text-to-world connections and explaining the so what of your essay. Now that your reader has read your thesis and seen you prove your thesis in your body paragraphs, your reader's probably wondering, okay, so what? What does this all mean? Why did I need to know all this? And so the last few sentences of your conclusion should basically explain why everything you said was important. Alright, so when we focus on our introduction, we're looking at the top part of an hourglass, or another way to think of it is an inverted triangle. A triangle that has been turned upside down. And so again, you see it has the same shape. You're starting out very broadly, very generally, and then you're getting to the narrowest part, the most specific statement, your thesis statement. Alright, so let's look at a little introductory video from Flocabulary about thesis statements.
What's a thesis? A sentence that you write for your readers. Tells them what you're believing, gives them a reason for reading. It's gonna drive your essay like it's in the cockpit. Make it stand out like a nun in the mosh pit. Put it at the end of your first paragraph. Treat it like a baby. Are you taking care of that? This is big. A thesis needs to be an argument that you're arguing, not something so obvious. Don't say Apple is a company. That's obvious. It sounded kinda dumb to me. But if you say Apple's products are overrated? Whew, now that's something that could be debated. Okay, you can test if it's a thesis. Is it something that a smart person could disagree with? Don't say Tupac made some good hip-hop. That's a bad choice, like wearing socks with flip-flops. But the Black Panthers influenced Tupac's ideology. Is that a better choice? It's gotta be. Don't make it too large, don't supersize. Keep it really focused like a camera guy. Make your thesis tight like skinny jeans. Take your time to scrub it down, Mr. Clean. Do the legwork, make it legitimate. Do you need to revise? Consider it. Get specific with it. You don't wanna mess your message up and misdeliver it. Have people thinking you're illiterate. Don't be vague. Don't go talking in the first person, saying, I think this book is kinda worth it. Yeah, make it clear like a windshield, and by your conclusion, you will know how a win feels. Make your thesis clear like a windshield, and by your conclusion, you'll know how the wind feels.
So a thesis statement is basically a concise or brief sentence or two, usually one sentence, that states what the essay is about. A thesis is important because it's basically the roadmap of your essay. It's giving direction to the essay, and it's letting your readers know exactly what the rest of the essay is going to be about. So usually the best place to have your thesis is at the end of the introductory paragraph. It should be the last sentence. And again, it is the roadmap for what the writer is going to prove in their body paragraphs. Another way to think of your thesis is to think that it's basically your claim. The same way a short response paragraph is going to have the first sentence that restates and answers the question. Your thesis is basically the RA part of your essay. It is where you've restated and answered the essay prompt. It is, again, the point that you are going to make and prove in your body paragraphs. A good thesis is usually going to be only one sentence. It's going to be a statement, not a question. In fact, it should be answering a question. It's identifying the subject of the essay or paper, and it should be something that could be argued. It should take a stand, and it shouldn't just be a simple sentence where you say, this essay is about dreams. What about dreams are you going to prove in your essay? Or, my essay is about goals. Again, what is it that your essay is going to say about goals? In order for you to have a very strong thesis, you want to make sure that it's not too broad or too general. Saying that your essay is about dreams is way too general or broad. It shouldn't be too narrow or too specific. So you don't want to say, Derek Jeter discusses his dream of being high school player of the year. That's a detail that should go into an essay that has a more general thesis statement, and it shouldn't be too vague. Again, saying Derek Jeter had a lot of dreams is a very vague statement. A thesis should be a little bit more specific than that. When you are writing your thesis, a good thing to think about would be to have a sentence where you state the specific title of the text that you're going to be writing about. This would obviously be a thesis that applies to a literary, informative essay where you are focusing on a text. If you're not writing about a text, then it should state the topic. There should be a strong verb within your thesis. So after the topic or the text, you would want to have some kind of verb or verb phrase, like teaches readers. And then you want to elaborate a little more. You want to explain what the text is exactly doing. So if I'm going to use the verb teaches readers, what exactly is it teaching readers? What's my point? Teaches readers that you should always follow your dreams. Now, teaches readers is just one particular verb phrase that you could use. On the screen, there are a list of different verbs that could possibly take the place of teaches readers. Now, each of these verbs means something a little bit different, so you would really want to choose your verb specific to what you are trying to say about the text. Are you trying to say that the text is showing readers something? Is it illustrating something? Is the author describing something, proving something, portraying something, exposing something, establishing something? Again, you want to choose the best verb that fits the point that you're trying to make about what that text or what that author is doing. All right, so what are some strategies for writing a thesis? Well, one way to write your thesis is to take the essay prompt and to rephrase it as your thesis statement. Again, I'm going to remind you about writing short response paragraphs, how when we try to write a raft paragraph, we are restating and answering the question. And so that is the same strategy that we can apply to the essay prompt and our thesis statement. We can take that essay prompt, restate it, and answer it in a strong sentence that could become our thesis. So for example, if my task was a question, those are always the easiest ones to turn into thesis, because all you have to do is restate that question and answer it. So if my thesis task said, is June to blame for the other June bullying her? Use specific details from the text to support your response. Then an appropriate thesis would be, in Tuesday the other June, notice that I mentioned the text title in my thesis, June is partially to blame. So I've answered the question, is she to blame? My answer is she's partially to blame for the other June bullying. And then I want to be even a little bit more specific. If I ended my thesis right here, it would be an okay thesis, but even stronger would be to give a statement of why I feel that way. And then the reason why I feel that way is what I'm really going to prove in my body paragraph. So she's partially to blame for the other June bullying her because of the way she handles the bullying. So this is not too general, but not too specific. I haven't told you the exact ways that she handles the bullying. That's going to be the details and the text evidence in my body paragraphs. Now you can also take the essay prompt, even if it's not a question, and you can use it to write your thesis. And what you would do is you would take the essay prompt and you would kind of unpack it and figure out what's the hidden question. Even when something is not stated as a question, there is a question, especially when it's a task, that the assignment is kind of asking you to answer. So an example would be this task right here. Write an essay in which you explain the use of irony in one of the unit texts. Describe the effect the use of irony has on the overall text. So what is this task basically asking me to do? If I have to explain the use of irony, well then I need to first identify what the irony was. And once I identify what the irony is, the task is also asking me to describe the effect. So this is a how question. How does the irony affect the text? And I can combine that together into this essay question. How does the author use irony in the text? And so then I can now restate and answer this as my thesis. In The Chaser, John Collier uses irony to develop the theme that you should be careful what you wish for. Let's look at some examples of a poor thesis versus an effective thesis. So again, a poor thesis would be one that is too broad or too specific, one that is not exactly stating the exact point of the essay. So John Collier uses irony. Okay, that's what the essay is going to be about. It's going to be about this author and how they use irony, but it is way too broad. A more effective thesis would be John Collier uses irony. Why does he use it? To develop his theme. So a more effective thesis is going to explain why. It's not going to be too specific, though. It doesn't necessarily have to say what the theme is. That could be something that the body paragraphs explore. Another ineffective thesis would be to say, in this essay. This is a very juvenile way to introduce your thesis or start your essay. It's also stating the obvious. I know I'm reading an essay. You don't need to use the word essay in your essay. In this essay, I'm going to prove. Again, I'm stating the obvious. Obviously, your thesis is proving something. That's the entire definition of a thesis. You don't need to use the actual word prove. In this essay, I'm going to prove that Jeter uses cause and effect. All right, besides stating the obvious, it's also not specific enough. In The Life You Imagine, text title. Jeter uses cause and effect. Why? to develop his central idea. So this is an A+ thesis right there. It's not too specific, it's not too general. It tells you the exact author's name and the exact text title name. Some characteristics of a thesis is that a thesis is not just your topic, it's what you're saying about your topic. The point you're going to make, it explains why, it explains how. Remember that while you are writing your essay or paper, your thesis is a working thesis. It can be changed. So as you develop your body paragraphs, you might decide that you want to take your essay in a different direction, or you might realize, oh, there's actually a better piece of text evidence that I want to use that doesn't exactly match the thesis that I wrote. Again, you can change it. That's why the writing process is not a straight line, it's a circle. As you continue to write an essay, you want to read and think about your topic, see if your working thesis still represents the opinion or the evidence that you're providing in those body paragraphs. And if not, you want to either change your thesis or you want to change the evidence that you've been including. Alright, so let's apply what we've learned. Look over the performance-based tasks that we're working on for this unit, Unit 2. Explain the strategies these writers use to convey their experiences, challenges, and goals. And then look over your brainstorming and planning maps, your circle maps or your double bubble maps. And using that, you're going to write a thesis statement on an index card. This is your thesis for your Unit 2 essay. So it should make a statement about Derek Jeter, Barack Obama, and the strategies that they're using, and why or how they're using these strategies. Do you think they use these strategies to convey their experience, to convey their challenges, or to convey their goals? It can be a combination of these things. It could also be a more specific statement of what their experiences, challenges, or goals were.